Hello, today I'm going to present to you something I've been thinking about for quite a long time now, and I want to show you some of the journeys which I have actually made in my motorhome. So you can see on the map behind me the journey which I'm going to show you today. This is a journey which took place at the end of May and in the first half of June 2019. Now I used to actually film my journeys. I had a camera up front, dash cam they're called now, but when I was doing it I don't think anybody else was bothering to. And the longest journey I actually filmed was one from Sicily to eastern Poland, and you can actually see that it's on my site, which you can get from the playlists. But I've done lots of other journeys as well in vans. For example, I've got a couple in the United Kingdom. I've got one through Central Europe which I did in the spring of 2012. I've got a summer trip in 2011 in Poland. And there's even ones I did in my car. The first one I did in fact was called Europe 2007. So that shows how long ago that one was done. Now what I'm going to do in this one, though, it's not sort of a dash cam, it's places I stopped at, and I'm going to explain to you why I went somewhere and what I did when I was there and what can be seen in these places. And so what we're going to do today, you've got the map now behind me. Let's have a look at this in a little bit more detail. And from this map you can see the journey which I'm about to take. So basically this is a tour across Czechia and southern Germany. Now as I tend to travel to places well off the beaten track, this may be of interest to those who like to miss where the massive tourists in general go to. And when you look at the map you may think, well, why did I miss Hradec Králové or České Budějovice or indeed Munich? So please accept that this is the way things worked out for me. I had meetings related to my work which dictated the route, and the timetable may not have permitted deviations. But maybe in future videos I'll be doing these places. So the journey starts off here in Duszniki Zdrój. This is a spa town in Silesia in southwestern Poland. My van was parked around 1 kilometre from the central square, so that was an easy walk in. The most outstanding building there is the former paper mill, which today houses the Museum of Papermaking. The mill was originally built in the middle of the 16th century, but it was destroyed. And what we see today was completed in 1605. Inside we can see, amongst many other things, how paper was manufactured in bygone days, and here we have an example of it. The paper that comes out is of very high quality, and the colour and texture somewhat reminded me of the Conqueror brand paper I used to use in my company in London. And I've got some here. In fact, this is an example of paper which comes using this process. In fact, this is the paper you saw being manufactured in the film. It really is very nice quality. from there I travelled on to a place called Pardubice in central Czechia. I left my motorhome in what was once the parade ground of a barracks. The cost was so low that it was almost free, but it wasn't free, I had to pay something. There's a second location next to the river and close to the old town, which one might also like to consider. Pardubice is a town well off the beaten track and which has a very old world feeling about it. The streets around the old town square reminded me of the latter days of the Habsburg Empire. Not that I actually remember them myself, but that's the sort of thing I imagine it would look like. There's a walled castle with an interesting museum of the history of the town set in a pleasant park. The tower has a museum explaining why the emblem of the town is half a horse. And the view from the top of the tower is quite magnificent. The darkest part of the history of the town happened during the Second World War. When the Czechoslovakian resistance assassinated Nazi governor Reinhard Heydrich in 1942, part of the resistance cell was in Pardubice. We can today follow the steps of the brave resistance fighters with an audio guide from the tourist office. I've gone into this in a video on my history channel called History on YouTube, and that goes into much more detail, so if you're interested, have a look there. In the wake of the assassination of Heydrich, thousands of people were arrested, and to make an example, 2 villages were destroyed. One was Lidice near Prague, and the second was Ležáky, which is where I travelled to on leaving Pardubice. Ležáky was a hamlet where most of the men worked in the nearby quarry, where a resistance cell was founded in 1939. The Gestapo discovered this cell in the aftermath of the Heydrich assassination, arrested and then killed the people living there and destroyed their houses. Today we can see the remains of where the houses were, where the quarry was, and visit a museum to the village. The memorial is very well kept and it's a fitting reminder of what happened there. From Ležáky, I travelled to Humpolec, where I spent the night. There's a car park next to the road, and in the morning I saw that I was not the only campervanner there. I then travelled westwards, stopping at the remarkable village of Volny, home to 3,000 people, with a protected historical centre. Located on a trade route, it's first mentioned in 1271, when a castle was built near the ford of the river, which bears the same name as the town. Interesting features include the castle, a Jewish cemetery, which is at least 300 years old, a synagogue, and a magnificent town hall. The town hall is the dominant building in the square, which is located on the main road as one drives through. The whole square is an invitation to stop to enjoy the view. The town hall is one of the oldest municipal buildings in Bohemia. It was originally the home of a wealthy business person, which was acquired by the inhabitants in the 16th century. Of course, like all old towns, Volny is only as old as the last fire, and there have been several. In 1742, part of the town's archives burnt down, and in 1884 the tower was destroyed. Major repairs were made in 1927 and 2005. Continuing on from Volny, I came to the village of Chichne, which more or less invited me by offering a place to park my motorhome in the centre. This village dates to at least the first half of the 13th century, when a fortress was built, and then the village was built around it. The castle was built by someone called Czech, so the village became Chichne. Of particular interest to me in the village was the rather large synagogue, which is today a museum. I need to point out that I do not speak Czech, and I may have mispronounced the words here. I do, however, understand the language and I can read it. The next stop was Straszne, which is on the German-Czech border. It lies on the valley below the Straszne mountain, which rises to 1,115 meters, between two tributaries of the Vltava river. Today, the main reason to visit is for the Bohemian Forest National Park. From here, I travelled to Freien in Germany, which has a motorhome Stellplatz next to the railway station, and I went out for a short walk before heading towards Waldkirchen. I had heard about a new Stellplatz in the town, but I did not have the address on me, and I didn't have internet either. But, as it happened, it didn't matter, as I found a nice parking spot next to a farm, and I had the mooing of the cows to listen to throughout the summer night. Waldkirchen is on an ancient salt trading route and was first mentioned in 1203. As I say everywhere, and I've already said in this video, and I'm going to repeat again, probably many times, an old town is only as old as its last fire. Unfortunately for Waldkirchen, it was in comparatively recent times. On the 26th of April 1945, the 16th Company of the Großdeutschland Regiment of the SS Panzer Grenadier Division Das Reich arrived from St. Pölten in Austria to attack the advancing 11th Armoured Division. Much of the town was destroyed, including the historical church after which the town was named. Waldkirchen was rebuilt in the 1950s. From here I went to Passau, I was very impressed by the free motorhome Stellplatz there, which was around 3 kilometers by bicycle to the historic centre. The centre is magnificent and entirely deserving of a detailed video, and not just the short mention I'm going to give it here. Once more, being a historian of the Second World War above all, I had prepared information on the parents of Adolf Hitler, who lived here during the last decade of the 19th century, as did the young Hitler himself, and you can see that video on my history channel. I'm quite proud of that video, as a lot of work went into it. The next stop was Bad Griesbach, whereas the town was first mentioned in a document from around 1076. The hot thermal water was discovered in 1972, which led to its orientation as a spa town. As such, it lacks the charm, old-world feeling that one usually associates with spas. Whereas there is a hotel complex, this to me was more like an upmarket housing estate, maybe a gated community, but it didn't really appeal as a tourist destination. The final stop was Aulendorf, but to get there I decided to take the roads rather than the motorway, which turned out to be much more difficult than I expected. I ended up getting lost in Munich, despite the sat-nav, and from there I gave up and decided to take the motorway. Aulendorf is where Carthago motorhomes are manufactured, and I'd come to visit the company. It's a historic town which was once the capital of the historic German tiny state of Königsegg. It is to some extent still dominated by the castle. Of particular interest is the Knight's Cellar, Ritterkeller, a medieval style restaurant with period food. I'd wanted to visit a place like this for years and years and never managed to do it. It was well worth the wait. It was a fantastic evening. So, now, let's come back to the map and to me. This, as it turned out, was the end of the road as far as this journey was concerned. Now, I may live in a van, but it's not all what it may be cracked up to be. I mean, it sounds great, it is great, I'm not complaining, but at times I have to do work. And I was called away in an emergency, and so that really put a stop to this journey, which was a pity, because I'd planned on going. I was going to spend more time in Baden-Württemberg. I was going to go to Bad Waldsee, for example. I was going to go to Bad Kissingen. I was going to see a trade fair there, off-road trade fair, which I was really looking forward to. And I planned one or two other things en route as well. Unfortunately, it was not to be. I had to get in the van and then drive nearly 1,100 kilometers, and within a very short, I had to do it that day in fact. So I don't like driving like that. That was the most amount of kilometers I've ever done in a motorhome in my life in one day. It's not in a car. I once did 1,632. That's my all-time record, which I don't suppose I'll ever beat. But I don't like driving like that. Anyway, it's not the point. But then again, you know, I had to do it. I mean, it was a job, huh? So, you know, you've got to. What pays for this is doing other. This lifestyle is working on other things. So that's the way it is. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. I will publish more of these videos showing my journeys if there's any interest. I do encourage you, if you are interested, you might want to see my journey through Italy, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary and Poland in 2013, which is my longest one if you're sort of interested in that type of thing. But my next one I shall do is a journey which was in the summer, July and August of 2019, and once I get around to doing it, although I haven't actually even started it yet, so I will publish that, of course. Thank you very much for watching, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe.